If you had a near miss from an asteroid, Starship flight next week, and Elon duking it out with astronauts on your bingo card, you're about to win a toaster. It's time to step into this week's Flame Trench.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes! Bingo down to nominal.
Flighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange!
R45. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
How did it go? Did anybody yell bingo? Anybody win a toaster in our bingo call out? Folks, it's our weekly talk show where we talk about the news called The Flame Trench. My name is John Galloway for NSF. If you see me in chat, you may know me as Das, but you know the drill. We've got lots of stuff to talk about this week. Actually, some pretty serious conversations we're going to have as well and let you know what we sort of think about it all. Well, let me get in some other folks here. Let's get Mr. EJ in with me. What is EJ? Oh, that is a delightfully relevant manual to be reading, EJ.
Oh yeah, no, hey man, I'm looking for the part where it says get insulted by someone on social media.
Man,
I can't find it.
In the index, go to the P's for passenger.
Oh,
I guess. Good grief! Quick, we gotta get Alex over here. Alex, please tell me that we have Alex on the show as well.
Sorry, I was like too busy laughing about that exchange.
I don't even know if
good, man.
laughing is the right thing to say, but just in case EJ or I need a 10-minute break, we've got Alex on the show as well.
Yeah. Oh boy. Hang on.
The news has been hitting us fast and furious, folks. We've got lots of different stuff to talk about. Bear with us. You know that this is our talk show. We're going to tell you sort of what's been going on. We're going to color it with a little bit of conjecture or opinion or something like that. Normally we don't, right? Normally it's like, hey, here's the facts. You watch Starbase Update, you watch This Week in Spaceflight, it's like really clean. Hey, here's the facts, right? But on the Flame Trench, on the Flame Trench, it's a little bit more open show. So that's what we're going to be doing today, talking through this with you. We're going to be reading your questions out of chat at NASASpaceflight if you got a tag for us or anything like that. But let's talk about what we're going to talk about first. In a quick whirlwind, we're going to be talking about Blue Ghost, Firefly's lunar lander, creating some crazy good images on the way out to the moon. Scrolling down the dock, are we done with the International Space Station? Are we going to get rid of it? Is it time to do that? Well, some folks say that it might be time. We'll talk about that as well. Also, the whole thing going on with everybody issuing statements on social media that are very conflicting. We're going to talk through some of that with you today. The asteroid that was supposed to be coming to hit us, right? Asteroid percentage chances going up and down and up and down, and the latest update is it's now below 1%. We'll talk about that near miss. What else do we have? Oh, this is to get you to stick around to the end of the show. We're also going to talk about next week in a Starship flight that might be happening. A lot of documents, I guess, coming out in support of a flight date next week. And interesting things about the flight after that as well we're going to talk about. Did I miss anything? EJ? Alex?
I think you got a lot. We got a lot there. There's a lot to unpack in those four things. I think we're good.
I just scrolled through the document and said what was in the document. Alex, am I good? Did I catch everything?
Yeah, I think you got everything. It's quite a pity that we have something that it's actually not featuring a flame trench such as lunar news here, because there are no flame trench on the moon yet. I guess
Questionably, it digs its own flame trench, right?
I guess.
I think that's what we'd go with. Folks, we're going to be reading chats. If you're watching us, put your comments over in chat. I will say, although we want to take your questions and stuff like that, keep it classy, right? Like we're gonna tell some jokes. We're going to make some funny statements and stuff like that. Not going to personally attack anybody. Not going to be rude or mean or evil or anything like that. We're a spaceflight community. We want to be honest with you, but we are not. Can I say deep? Anyways, we're not mean, right?
Nope.
Just keep it classy in chat for us, all right? Comments disappear if you're going to be mean and use foul language and stuff like that. That just is what it is. But let's kick it off here with Blue Ghost. It says the presenter is supposed to talk about. Who is that? Me?
I
you
think
can
that
take this
that
one.
should have been something that we were supposed to do before the show went live, and yeah.
I'll take the first one. I'll take the first one. I
Sure.
like Firefly. Y'all know that we've done some work with Firefly, right? We go out there, we do some live streams with Firefly for some of their launches. So let's talk about Blue Ghost going to the moon. Of course, Blue Ghost is Firefly's lunar lander built by Firefly. We don't have it in the show assets, but I have a selfie with the Blue Ghost lander that I took when I was over there hanging out with Firefly for one of the live streams. But it's on its way to the moon. It's not just, I guess, on its way to the moon. It's actually entered lunar orbit this week. It is now in orbit around the moon, and it's been doing its checkouts and its maneuvers, its various thrust maneuvers, I guess, course correction, stuff like that, to get it into the correct orbit in preparation for its upcoming landing. Actually, a little bit of, not a scare. I think that's the wrong term to use. But if you're watching social media, it was supposed to do a burn. It was communicated that it was going to do a burn. And then independent observers who track things that are happening in the near Earth, I guess, celestial sphere of influence, whatever, right? Said, whoa, wait a second. Blue Ghost was supposed to do this burn and it didn't happen. And then we saw Firefly themselves respond on social media saying, hey, that burn was a little bit of a dynamic timing. It wasn't an exact time that needed to happen. So we took another day. And sure enough, the next day, Firefly comes back with confirmation that burn happened. So continuing to do these burns, let's see here. They got another couple days in lunar orbit, getting ready for the landing and waiting for the proper sunlight conditions. And that's important because Blue Ghost is trying to land at lunar dawn, right? It is going to get down to the surface of the moon, and it's solar powered. So it only has power through the time that the sun is shining on the moon. And you know how the moon is tightly locked to the Earth, right? So we have about, not quite a 30-day cycle, and part of the moon is in sunlight for half the month, and then part of the moon is in shadow for half the month. Look up the sky. The moon shape changes, right? Moon shape doesn't change. The part of the moon that's illuminated changes. So they're landing at dawn, and they're going to have that sort of 14-day time where the sun is shining on the solar panels, and then they should be able to see the lunar sunset. And then after the lunar sunset, they expect that that's the end of mission for Blue Ghost. But, what else do we have going on? Oh, I'm talking very Firefly-y here. Here's the tweet from Firefly talking about Ghost Riders completing lunar orbit and stuff like that. But it's not just Firefly on the way to the moon. Before I get into Hakuto R, also on the way to the moon, let's get Alex and EJ over here. Alex, EJ, y'all seen the items, the images that have been coming back from Firefly, time lapses and shots of the moon and stuff like that?
I'm a fan. I've seen those. Some of the shots that they're posting from Blue Ghost 1 are pretty awe-inspiring. Like, I mean that like in the very like actual sense of that term. You like, I was looking at it over on my end, on Twitch, and I just found myself kind of just sitting there looking at it over and over again, like just repeating the same like 10 seconds, and I was just like, wow, that's pretty cool. To see that thing get out there, like you were saying a second ago, they did wait an extra day to do a lowering burn, right? But to see the pictures and the transparency coming from Firefly is actually, it's amazing. It's such a cool mission. I really, really hope they nail that landing. I think they will.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's awesome. So, and guys, look at some of these Look at some of these pictures. Like you can't lose.
I gotta say,
You can't lose with pictures like this.
the Blue Ghost comms team has been knocking it. Or Blue Ghost, the Firefly comms team is the right way to say it. Has been knocking it out of the park, talking about sharing media about what's going on with Blue Ghost on the way out of the moon. They got still frames that are coming in. They have the spacecrafts kind of in frame a little bit, and the moon in the background. Here's, I don't know that this is a video. I think this may be a series of stills that was put back together or something. It just says footage in the post, right?
That's the one, man. That's the one. I was just like, look at this. I don't hate what's going on here.
It's not the primary mission objective. And too often we hear, oh, well, they don't want to share anything. They don't want to put out the images. Oh, it's not quite ready yet. In Firefly is like, bang, did it burn? Here's some images from the moon. Check this out. Bang, did this. Here's some images. It's so refreshing to see a space company just posting this stuff up. What do y'all think, chat? Is this good, or are y'all bored of moon images? Alex?
I think it's cool. Like it's just the way that they are not just even sharing. Well, one of the things that it's as more of a nympho kind of guy, right? I like the images, right, and everything. But if that were the only thing that they were pushing out, I'd feel very bad, right, about them. But the good news is that's not the case. They have a live blog post like every single day or every 2 days or so. They post some kind of update there. Every week they have these summary videos talking about the things that they have done over the week. What are the things that they are, looking forward in the next week or so. It's been really, information rich, if you will, right? Which is really important for us that we cover this stuff, right? That, we try to tell other people and try to, tell them, look, these are the really cool things that are going on, right? And so we have not only the footage, but we also have a lot of this information to be able to put out to the public as well, which is really, I don't know, like, we literally have had this recurring series of lunar story segment on This Week in Spaceflight, the show that we have right after the Flame Trench, right?
Look at this.
Because of that kind of thing, right? It's like we have things going to the moon. We have a lot of things that are related to the moon, lots of information. It's, yeah.
Yeah. Look at that. By the way, chat, Alex likes information. He is an info sort of guy. I wouldn't gonna say it, but y'all said it in chat. You're an info sort of guy, right, Alex?
Yes.
Cool.
I just saw people in the back channel saying that it sounded like something else. It's
now
like
we got
an
you.
info, yeah.
An info kind of guy.
Oh my
You need a little bit more espace in there, Alex. In between the two words.
Whatever.
Anyways, y'all, it really is refreshing. If you're a space company and you're doing cool things and you hide your little lunar light under a bushel basket or whatever, you're not going to get coverage, right? But if you're a company and you're doing cool things and you share it, you've got a blog that's putting out information for info type people like Alex, and you've got some other media, images, videos, stuff like that, and you put that out there, you're going to get coverage. If you sit there and you don't tell anybody, of course nobody's going to know what you're doing, right? So massive props to Firefly for doing such a good job communicating what is going on out there with Blue Ghost. Big luck to them. Luck doesn't have anything to do with it, but they'll take all they can get, right? Just over 2 weeks. I know. Just
so far,
over
so
1
good.
week. Yeah.
I mean, every single burn they've been doing, it's gone really well, right? They are now in that, exactly, knock on wood, right? So far, it's looking good. And now it's like the proof of fire is next week that going down to the lunar surface. If I'm not mistaken, the attempt should be on March 2nd at 3:45 a.m. Eastern. That's when they're targeting that landing on the moon. So, best of luck to them. As you were saying, they're probably gonna get whatever they can get from that.
Oh, that's the Valentine's Day poem too.
Aw, look at that.
I like it. I like humans sending their humanness, right, into the solar system beyond Earth. I like rovers that sing happy birthday to themselves, and graffiti on space helmets will get there one day, and poems that are sent back over putty, it looked like. that's not a protocol, but whatever. Anyways, that is not the only thing going out to the moon. What I was going to finish up there with is that lunar landing, like Alex said, coming up in just over a week. So be on the lookout for that. I hear they're going to have some live stream related stuff going on for the lunar landing. So be on the lookout for Firefly there. Also on the way to the moon, Hakuto R, the resilience lander, heading out to the moon as well, on a little bit of a slower trajectory so that they have a little bit more time to get out there. But it has come within 8,400 kilometers of the moon as of the 15th. So they're sort of in this sort of, let's say, meandering trajectory going all the way around, right? And they're supposed to arrive out there in the vicinity of the moon in early May at a lower speed, so they need a little bit less fuel to do that braking burn into lunar orbit. They are trying to do a landing as well, headed down to, what is this? Can anybody say Mare Frigoris? Mare Frigoris?
Mare
Anybody?
Frigoris.
Is that Spanish? I don't think that's Spanish.
It's Latin.
It's Latin.
Although it's close enough, I guess.
What does
Mare
it mean?
Frigoris.
Do you know what it means?
No idea. Frigoris kind of sounds like
Man, it's like the Sea of Beans.
freezer.
Oh, freezer,
Sea of
not the
Beans.
frijoles, the Mar Frijoles.
It kind of sounds like fridge in Spanish. Frigorifico.
Okay.
Frigoris.
I guess that would make sense. Anyways, that is coming up. I think it's a couple weeks after that Hakuto R is supposed to be headed out to the moon. But looking out for that mission as well. We don't have as many cool time lapses of that sort of stuff, but a big, I guess, good luck to them as well as they make their way out to the moon.
Quite a complicated trajectory, not gonna lie.
Why is it so complicated, Alex?
Part of the whole reason for that complicated trajectory, you can see there's like a swing by out. You can see there's like a little fine print there, I guess, saying furthest point circa 1.1 million kilometers from Earth. That is this, it just swings out, and so it goes so far out that there's this sort of gravitational imbalance, right, with the sun and everything. It's far enough that there's enough of that gravity change, I guess, with the sun, and so it alters the trajectory in such a way that when it comes back around, it comes near the moon. But now it comes with a very slow trajectory, slow velocity, excuse me. So because it comes around with a slower speed, then it means that to enter around the moon, in orbit around the moon, it needs less fuel because the relative velocities are smaller. And so it does all of these loops and everything, trying to get the right moment and everything. It swings by the moon. That's what they did this past week. It comes back around one last time around the Earth, and then it, that sort of flungs the thing out there 1.1 million kilometers from Earth. And in early May, it'll be flying back again around the moon. But at that time, it'll be actually entering orbit around our celestial neighbor. And that is pretty much what, anybody that's played KSP, I don't know, do we know anybody here that may have played KSP?
I don't know. Jeez,
What's a KSP?
What does that
Yeah,
stand
right?
for? The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
But it's the case, right, that you have these when you just have two bodies and gravity in between of them and everything, things are very simple. Well, but once you start having three or more bodies, three-body problem, not referring to the Netflix thing.
There's a Netflix show about that.
When you have more than three or more than or more bodies in gravity, things get a lot more complicated. But you can take advantage of that and have these sort of weird tricks where once you come back around, now you're going out a lot slower than if you just did a traditional, translunar injection, and so you can use less fuel.
It's sort of the trick, like, and this applies to other planets as well, right? It's like, well, I can get you to Mars in a week, but then you have to slow down. You get going really fast to get there in a short amount of time, and then you have to turn around and slam on the brakes, except in space, there are no brakes. You have to carry fuel, you have to blow it up, you have to throw it out the back of your rocket, or you have to turn your rocket around and throw it out the front of your whatever. So you can get there faster, but sometimes that's more costly from a fuel, a delta V, whatever you want to call it, perspective. So sometimes if you don't have humans on board and their cheesecake's going to go bad if they don't get there soon enough, it's just a robotic lander, you can take the slower route, like Hakuto R is doing on the way to the moon. How's that?
And just to thread this with an upcoming mission, next week we're gonna have the Intuitive Machines 2 lander going to the moon. And guess what? That one is gonna do a simple 3-4 day trip to the moon. It's not gonna take the
Straight
long
there.
route. It's just gonna be straight going to the moon because it's carrying cryogenic propellants, and so they boil off. And you don't want to be hanging around, right? Because they boil off, and therefore just lose them to space. And so you really need to get there as quickly as possible. It's in that sense, it's just traditional, just like in the Apollo days, I guess.
Yeah, I think the no earlier than launch for that on next spaceflight was that Wednesday, Alex? I think we've got that as.
It is. You know what? It's because since it's late at night, I think it's different
one of
for
those
me than
things.
for you.
Yeah.
It is on February 26th, local February 27th for me.
Great. What else would be happening on February 26th per the document that's been released?
I don't know. you have any idea? It's actually spoilers. It's like within an hour of the other
gosh.
thing.
Oh
Yep.
no!
So maybe that launch will make a guest appearance in another launch broadcast. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
Okay, so that wraps up some things that are going on in about the environs, in and about the environs of the moon. Let me thank some support real quick. We got off to a strong start with the support here. Before the stream even started, Artaboy was a PadRat member. Appreciate you joining the membership program there. Rob Keown became a PadRat member, and Telstar86 gifted a Red Team membership. I think that's before the show even started. Steve came through and got something from the shop, says, please keep up on the terrific work that all of you do. Space Pope with a $50 super chat saying, bless this trench. You have to do the thing to bless the trench. Space Pope, we appreciate you.
Wait a minute, Dust.
what?
Hold on.
Huh.
When you do the hand signal, it's got to be orbiter external tank SRB. You have to do that, or else it's not legit. You got to say it.
It's
I'm just saying.
beautiful. Wait, do
Yeah.
it, EJ?
Orbiter external tank SRB, right? Because the Holy Spirit is one person. All right, sorry. No,
Okay,
never mind.
thank you.
Never mind.
Space Pope, we appreciate the support there. Also, Space Pope with the 50 Red Team memberships gifting into the chat. If you got one of the gifted memberships, not only do you get access to our cool behind-the-scenes stuff, little hangouts before and after the show, and special photos and stuff like that we release that we don't put out publicly. Also, you might be able to say thank you in chat to Space Pope, who gifted those memberships. Mike Alpha Tango Sierra gifted 10 Red Team memberships. Bob Fillmore gifted 10 Red Team memberships. Dougal gifted 10 Red Team memberships. I'm not that great at quick math, but I think that's 90 Red Team memberships all in a row there. Peter Starnes, or just Pete Starnes, became a Red Team member. Devin rounded it out to a clear 100 Red Team memberships.
Jeez.
And then Andy gave us 1,900 cops.
Really?
Does anybody know what that means? What currency is a COP? Help me out, chat. 1,900 COPs. Either way, I appreciate you. Telstar.
Colombian peso.
Colombian pesos. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it. Sometimes it's just like, yes, it actually translates it for me over here, but it's more fun to say.
Hey, also real quick.
Yeah.
Mats was in there. Shout out to Mats. Happy birthday, buddy.
Nice. Do we know how
Happy
old Matt
birthday.
is?
32.
There you go. Happy birthday, Matt. What else? Let me just
I got you.
run these out real quick. Telstar 86. KSP stands for Kevin's Special Propellant. Goes along with the Mare Frijoles, I think. I'd rather be flying an X-Wing. I really hope you guys take sake that Starship and Blue Ghost happen on different days. Hey, one way to find out X-Wing. We'll see what happens. That was a tip to tips.nasaspaceflight.com. And then Ash with a gifted membership. Let's get on with more of the content discussion here. I'll hop back over here because I see some cheesecake-related stuff. But, folks, we're able to do these shows because y'all keep showing up. You watch the shows, you like and subscribe or whatever, right? Y'all do so much to support us, and we cannot say thank you enough. Least we can do, well, it's not really, you know the joke, is to say thank you on shows like this. So we really do thank you for keeping us going, keeping the tanks tanked up, propellant topped off, stably replenished, whatever it is. We appreciate the support. What is next
like
on the
to-
list?
I like to say that chat keeps us in a stable orbit. You know?
I like it. Yes.
Keeps us in a stable orbit to keep the orbit from decaying. Which, segueing into the next topic.
You know what it takes work to keep in a stable orbit, EJ?
What?
The International Space Station.
Yeah. Yep. All right. That's
So this is a whole thing, y'all.
Yeah, this is a thing.
And you can see on the screen a post from Elon Musk here saying it is time to begin preparations for deorbiting the space station. It served its purpose. There's very little incremental utility. Let's go to Mars. What you don't see on the screen is all the posts that came immediately before this, which sort of put things into context. But let's focus it in, and let's talk first about the International Space Station before we talk about why that might have been posted in that specific timing. Okay? So the space station, right? Elon there saying we're not getting anything out of it. We need to deorbit it. Is that because he had some reason to say that? Put that aside for now. Little box, put it aside. ISS has been around for a while, right? We know that. It's cool. But if we weren't there taking care of it, the ISS would literally fall out of orbit. It's a big, draggy object, those big solar sails, not solar sails, the big solar panels, right? You see, they look really cool on the side. They even feather them to try and decrease the amount of atmospheric drag. But technically, there's really thin atmosphere up there around the International Space Station. And if we weren't there sending spacecraft to give it a little nudge on occasion, it would rather rapidly come down and burn up on its very own. So, people aside, supplying aside, all of these things aside, if we were not taking care of the space station, it would not last long on its own. It requires care and feeding, right? Put that in the column of things that you need to know about the space station. We got to take care of it. We also have people aboard. Our whole thing has been we've had a continual human presence in space for X number of years, right? Cadence on that really picked up when we got American rockets flying from American soil with American, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, EJ. So we have a continual human presence up there, and we try to justify the presence of these humans by giving them things to do, right? What are they doing these days? We always hear about the science the space station is doing. Oh, they're doing experiments, and this science is coming down, and this science is coming up. And then you see they're measuring the pressure of their eye, and they're learning about radiation and how it affects humans and all these things. But have we reached sort of the limit of useful experience we can get living and working in low Earth orbit? Spoilers, I think no. But the space station itself may not be the right thing to keep that going on. All right, file that in a bucket. Okay, people there, we have to keep the people busy. In order to keep the people busy, we have to give them things to do, but we also have to give them air and water and supplies and ice cream when they can get ice cream and all of these things, right? So it takes budget to keep the International Space Station going. So all of this being said, we had already decided on a plan that says that the International Space Station was going to be deorbited in 2030. 2030, 5 years-ish from now. All right? That was already the decision. But when Elon comes in and says, well, we don't even need to keep it that long. Let's get it out of the sky even sooner in 2 years. All of a sudden, that creates questions and that creates difficult situations. So let's go around the horn and let's kick it off with Alex first. I've sort of put some facts in some buckets, Alex. Where do you land on the International Space Station staying up there? Does it make sense for us to keep it going 5 years versus 2 years?
Oh boy, this is a whole can of worms, I guess. My take on all of this is the ISS is old. We need a replacement, right? And thankfully, there are companies working on that actually, and agencies even, like not just at company levels and contractors and whatnot, but also at agency levels. Not just NASA, but also other agencies as well are working with commercial companies to be able to do this. Example, recently I heard that you went to VAST, right? And so, VAST, for example, has multiple agreements with other agencies as well, not just, and they want to the future, be able to partner as well with NASA and be able to be part of the commercial LEO destinations program, right? This is the whole thing that's going on right now. However, it's still in development, right? We don't have that capability yet. And I'm of the opinion that we should phase out things when we have the capability online. We should not do this while we have not had that capability in place. And why do I think this? Because we have had this same problem in the past of phasing out things without a replacement in place, and we have had to rely on other actors, let's put it that way, that have been a bit problematic in some sense. Or we just outright, like I mean, you know, the Western side of things in the world have not gone into space at all, right? So I like the idea of, you know, retiring something that's already being up there. By the time of the retirement will be 32 years up there in space, right? It's too long. It's a lot of work still to keep it up and everything. But you gotta have a replacement in place. You cannot say straight away, we have to do it as soon as possible and forget about a potential capability that probably needs to be there, not just for agencies, right? Like NASA, ESA, and whatnot, but also for other companies. There's this thing brewing right now, this thing that's trying to grow, which is a low Earth orbit commercial market. If you don't nurture that, if you don't keep it and try to make it grow, if you just abandon completely and say, well, goodbye, say, I'm going to Mars, right? What's going to be about that, right? If you want a future where we have not humans just going and, you know, back and forth to Mars, but there's other destinations where we can go. There's this market where there are other places, the moon, for example, in the future. There are already commercial companies, as we have highlighted earlier in the show, that are going to the moon. And in the future, it will be even more landers, more companies, bigger landers, Starship there as well, that are going to be doing that. That's my opinion.
If I were to summarize your opinion, yes, the ISS needs to go away, but we're not quite there yet. We don't want to leave a gap in between, I guess, the Western side of things having humans in space and the ability to go up and do things in space at the International Space Station, whatever. We want to have other options up there before the ISS comes down. Is that a good summary of your position?
Yeah, and I think it's very, very tempting to look at the ISS and be like, ooh, it has a $3 billion budget every year, so let's just throw it out. But then it's like, yeah, but the remedy might actually cost you more than the problem, right?
Right.
I don't know.
EJ, I was insinuating that you're next. Where do you fall on the ISS now versus later?
All right, hold up. Sorry, I had the mic muted. I'm good now.
Oh, we can
I agree with the stopgap thing. Anytime, you know, we deorbit something without a direct replacement in the pipe, it never ends well. You know, the commercial crew program was billed as a replacement for the space shuttle. It was not ready when the space shuttle was retired. We waited 10 years. We had a 10-year stopgap. If you want to go a little bit earlier than that, and by earlier I mean 50 years earlier, right? You can go to the Apollo program. You know, the Apollo Soyuz test project, July 1975. And, you know, they're like, oh, the shuttle will be flying by, you know, 1979. It'll be fine. It's just a 4-year stopgap. Nope, didn't fly till 1981. You know, not bad, but still, that's not. Alex is right. Anytime that happens, yeah, we'll deorbit. We'll have something else. Well, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. We'll have something else. We'll need not be flying for like the next 2 years. It'll be great.
Yeah.
You know, that's right. But where I disagree is that if you go and look at Elon's tweet, you know, and Alex, you kind of did touch base on this a little bit, but he said deorbit it in 2027. Where will Starship be in 2027? Look at where Starship was 2 years ago versus, you know, and kind of extrapolate where an exponential increase in flight frequency. Where's Starship going to be in 2027? We're not going to need the ISS. We don't need that. You could just put someone on a Starship. You know, I think Starship is very, very, very quickly approaching a human rating. I don't know, probably happened in the latter part of this decade, which is right around the time when when Elon says deorbit it, right? So I really think that, looking at it from, to play devil's advocate here, looking at it from his point of view, Starship will be ready by then. And I'm pretty sure that's the context of that statement.
Yeah.
Deorbit it in 2027. Let's go to Mars. Well, obviously, let's go to Mars. What are we going to go to Mars with? Starship. If we're going to go to Mars, right, there's going to be people on board. It's going to have a human rating 2027, maybe 2028, if SpaceX does what Elon says and takes the impossible and make it late. So starting to get ready for deorbit around 2027 doesn't seem like that far-fetched of an idea. And, oh, am I done? Was that the bell?
I think it's the fighting bell. I think.
Wait, am I done? Anyway,
I don't know.
So, like I said, that's he's not wrong. The ISS is old. It's old. The modules were fabricated in the 80s. It was supposed to be the USOS side is parts of Space Station Freedom, right? That's a space station that was on the books in 1984. Okay. With the power tower and then the dual keel, which should have happened. That would have been amazing, right? These things are old. You can't last up there forever, and even the Russian modules are even older. They were made for the Mir 2 space station when the Soviet Union was still around.
Yeah.
That's how old these modules are, right? Like, it's old. You need a replacement.
Yeah.
You need something. But, according to Elon, like from his point of view, Starship will be that replacement because you can just send somebody up on a Starship and have reusable Skylabs, right? And then send a Dragon to it. Why not, right? Like, just do that.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to skirt the human rating, send Starship up there uncrewed and then send a Dragon in low Earth orbit, dock that Dragon to it, and boom, instant space station.
I will wonder here. There's one thing that we haven't really caught on because it's not just our space station. Right? It's the International Space Station. Yeah. So it's not a unilateral thing where one organization just decides what they're going to do. Now, individual organizations can pull out, like Roscosmos was supposed to be pulling out in 2028, if I'm not mistaken, right? So was Europe going to kick in more, or were they going to do less, and then the yearly budget goes down, or what was going to happen then, right? But it's not just one place. And I think this really walks me into the argument that a lot of you are going to really agree with and a lot of you really aren't going to agree with. I love Starship. I want to see Starship fly. I do not believe the only way that we can have space stations in space should be Starship. Right?
Yeah.
We need some other ways to have space stations in space and use the heck out of Starship, make a Starship station, have a Starship that deploys the station, whatever. But we also don't want to be beholden to only one way to have a space station. And I think that really hits home for some of the international partners, right? Who, if they don't have the International Space Station there, and it's only one place that you have to go if you want a space station, all of a sudden this place can tell you that you can't have a space station, or maybe you have to go somewhere else and work with some other group that has a space station, right? Maybe that's not the best idea. So I could see the point of international folks, especially not only wanting to have one option. And you have to weigh that having choice, right, with the quickness and efficiency that we see out of SpaceX. SpaceX can get something up there. Even like the vast Haven 1 module launching on the Falcons, right? Yep. Like, okay, SpaceX still involved there. But I really do think...
Is launching also modules as well of Haven 2. The core module.
Potentially, yeah. Potentially that's one of the options that they can launch.
7-meter diameter module, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So that sort of thing, like I could see it's not all us. If we want to deorbit, what does that mean for the international partners? Like, could we just say, all right, well, we're out? Could the international partners keep it going if like Europe stepped in and said, all right, well, we're going to fund it all and we're going to reboost it or pay for the reboost or whatever, and we're going to have all European astronauts there and et cetera, et cetera. Is that even a possibility? Would that be allowed? I don't know. Right? It's like owning a piece of land with your relatives. And it's like, oh, I always was going to build a house on this piece of land, but now I want to sell it. And then your uncle's still like, no, we're not selling it. Everybody has to come to an agreement on what's going to happen with this thing. And people have to be able to get out of it. What is chat saying about this? Right? Don't dump another dime into it. It's not worth it. If countries like mine can't manage to put people in stations by themselves, it's our problem. It should motivate my country to put itself in space. I mean, all right. Breach of contract. breach of contract, EJ Alex?
What contract is being breached here? I mean, the U.S. operates the space station. Yeah, there's a European module, there's a Japanese module, there's Canadian components, of course, and then there's the Russian operational segment, which the U.S. also owns a very good portion of.
Yeah.
Rasvet and Zarya are U.S. property on paper. So,
Okay.
I mean, the U.S. is by far the biggest stakeholder in this entire operation. Like, and once again, guys, don't get confused. I'm not trying to make this like, well, if the U.S. says we're going to do it, then everybody's going to do it. Like,
Yeah.
it's not about that. Like, you know, the U.S. operates all these modules, and there are separate mission control. There's a European mission control. There's a Japanese mission control.
Sure.
But, contractually, I'd say everybody would have to come to an agreement, but I would say that the U.S.'s word in this context counts a lot more than everybody else's. At the very least, I would say it's like probably like 50-50 with the Russians, or like maybe 40% of Russian, 10% European, and 10% Japanese, and 40% American. Like, we're the biggest stakeholder in the project by a long shot.
I think
So
there's probably some people in chat who would say that the U.S. is not doing so good at keeping up its international word lately, but that's a totally different thing. The
that's
ISS
what I was
itself,
trying not to get into.
right? Like the ISS itself, I don't know. I don't actually know the answer to this, and maybe this is something that needs to be linked and researched. Usually you have a contract and everybody signs on to the ISS Accords, right? This is the ISS contract, the ISS partnership agreement, and you'll have like a termination clause. And it'll say, okay, well, we're going to do this for this many years, and we can do it less than that, and here's what that means, right? Does somebody get repaid? Does somebody have the option to buy it out? This is all just regular contract things, not anything to do with the International Space Station. I don't know how the ISS's agreements internationally are written. I don't know the answer to that, honestly. Is there something in there that says if the U.S. wants out, the EU and Russia can buy out the U.S.'s stake or something like that? It seems like that would be silly. Nobody would pay as much as it cost to build the International Space Station. So I wonder if that's even something to work on. And it walks you into the question, could a private company buy it and keep it? Right? It's worth what's the SpaceX contract to deorbit it? Like $800 million to deorbit it or something?
Yeah.
Am I wrong on that? Anyways.
No, that's the USDV. That's about right.
Yeah.
It's like 830 something or other.
What if some other company came over and said, "Hey, we'll pay $200 million and buy the International Space Station from all the international partners and keep it operating. We just want to buy it and use it as a private space station." Is that even an option? Could everybody agree to that? Would Russia agree to that? Would the EU agree to that?
I don't. I mean, yeah, I don't see why not, Das. Like, yeah, they could.
SpaceX certainly wouldn't like it. It would be an $800 million loss to SpaceX. All of a sudden, instead of them getting paid $800 million, they would get less of that, I guess. They're already working on it, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, I suppose they could, but... okay, like, I don't mean this in any bad way, shape, or form, and forgive my ignorance here. Like, can anybody foot the bill for operations for that thing aside from the United States? Like, please, chat, chime in, prove me wrong here. Like, I don't think anybody else can, and once again, I'm
EJ,
a bit ignorant to this.
Given
right?
the waste and bureaucracy in government, it seems like a private corporation would be way better at running the International Space Station for far cheaper than the U.S. government.
Are we talking about selling it to a private company? Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Are we talking about selling it to a private company, though? Or are we talking like selling it to another country, like having Europe, the ESA be the primary stakeholder, or JAXA, or CSA?
Why not both? Like if the U.S. Why does the International Space Station have to cost so much to operate?
It's old. It requires tons of maintenance. You know why? Because it was made in the 80s.
But, like, what are they doing? They're not going out there with Flex Seal and, like, sealing holes in it, right?
Not on the outside.
I don't know.
A lot of the equipment is just old. Just old, dude. Like, look at the solar panels. The solar panels are a great example here.
Yeah.
Now, the ISS nowadays has a newer version of solar panels that are attached. Yeah, exactly. The rollout solar arrays, which were made by Boeing, and they work great, by the way. But that's just a case in point here. Like, look at that comparatively to the solar panel the photovoltaic cells that were made for the original space station, for Space Station Freedom.
Yep.
The IROSAs are a quarter of the size and generate like double the power. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
Now you're maintaining old equipment, and space is already an expensive endeavor, but maintaining all this old equipment is an even more expensive endeavor on top of that.
But see, that doesn't.
Does anybody?
It doesn't seem
What's
like
up?
it needs to be that way, right? Why does it
Oh,
need
no,
to be
absolutely
that way? The power requirements on the International Station are driven by the stuff that they're doing on board. If you turn down a bunch of the stuff that they're doing and you trim down the system so you just have attitude control and stuff like that, you have less people on board, so your consumables are less. Could you not run the International Space Station more cheaply? I think what this has sort of walked to in my head is more of a safety thing than could somebody operate the ISS, because I believe that some other organization besides the U.S. government or the International Consortium could run the ISS more cheaply and efficiently than we have. If you don't agree with that, you say the U.S. government can do things cheaply and efficiently. But there is the safety factor where if they don't, the stakes are pretty high. If they don't keep the space station in one piece and they don't keep it reboosted, it could come down places and have consequences. So maybe for me, it's more, could you trust another entity to do that? Or should we just clean up our play toys and put new play toys in orbit that are easier to keep up there safely? Alex, you're being quiet. That's weird.
I'm letting you two fight this off because I had a point like 10 minutes ago, and
Go though, like jump in anytime. This is the flame trench. Like,
yeah, but it's fun because I'm looking here actually through documentation. I actually found the document, it's called Agreement between the United States of America and other governments, signed at Washington, January 29th, 1998. That's the agreement for the for the International Space Station to partner between all of the agencies and governments and whatever, and put it out there in space.
What's it say?
Kevin is preparing it. There we go. That's the documentation. It's a long document. I was sort of skimming through some of the important stuff. Parts of where it talks about the ownership of the elements and things like that. Unfortunately, I don't have a good way of pointing this out to Kevin, but it's way down. Yeah, it's because I'm on a Mac, and Mac it's
Sure.
weird for these things. I don't know how to use
What
it.
page is it, Alex?
On the document, it
Yeah.
is 6.5. It's at the top.
Page
Of
6
each
or page
page.
65?
Page 5.
Page 5. All right. We're going to look at this, y'all. Like, hey, here's the document. Let's see
Yeah.
what it says for what it's worth. What does it say, Alex?
A little bit lower. Yeah, it's not the page of the document of the PDF or whatever. It's of the document of the where
Okay.
it says
yeah,
at
yeah,
the
there it
top.
is. There's 4, there's 5. All right, go.
Yeah, see, you can see there's Canada, the European partner, Russia, the United States, blah 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 blah. Yeah, it just states all of the different ownerships. Like, for example, the European partner shall entrust ESA acting in its name and on its behalf with ownership of the element it provides, as well as over any other equipment developed. So it's like, if you provide this piece of equipment, you have to take care of it, right?
Yeah.
Things like that. And so the ownership of equipment or material provided by a user shall not be affected by the mere presence of such equipment or material in or on the space station.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what is this in summary? I mean, you brought the document up, but what is it telling us?
I
Is
was
it telling
still
us that
reading and things like that? It just, you guys were talking precisely about, is there a way of establishing, like, is there? Well, there is actually a document that was signed when this was, worked, through all of the different governments and entities. That they agreed to these clauses, I guess. These terms. Yeah. And so it's like, this is essentially what they agreed to. And if you skim through a bit of these things, pretty much what it says is, whoever gives out an element of the station, they have the authority over it, right? The transfer of ownership of the elements listed in the annex or of equipment in or on this space station shall not affect the rights and obligations of the partners under this agreement, the memorandum of understandings or implementing arrangements. Like they say lots of things, trying to take care for things in the future, even saying, private entity under the jurisdiction. Like this is 1998, right? We're talking about that was weird. Private entities in space, right? There were maybe two at most
back then.
Yeah, back then, and so they were already, taking those kinds of things into account. Anyways,
Okay.
Completely different from all of this talk, though, is this whole thing about going to Mars and everything, and one of the things that I'm really itchy about that, it's like this feeling of, no, don't talk about that, right? Is precisely timelines, because we know there's not a good track record with timelines, and I'm not even just talking about Elon time. I'm talking spaceflight industry in general, with timelines not being usually met. And there's a lot of technology and stuff that you need to develop to go to Mars, right?
Yeah. I think that comes back around to what EJ was talking about, right? Yeah. If we just shut it down, deorbit it before there's a viable replacement, right? It removes the sense of urgency, because we had a way to get to space. It had wings and SRBs, and it was called the space shuttle. Yell bingo if that was your last card. And we shut down the space shuttle, and we did not have a viable return, like replacement for it, right? And it's almost like if you keep that thing going, but you say, wow, all right, we only have 5 years to get a replacement up there. We need to pay individual commercial companies to design commercial space stations, get them up there before 2030, because the ISS is going away and we need them there first. That almost gives you this like bite-sized amount of time, this deadline to work in, right? Whereas if you just say, I'll deorbit the ISS, we'll have commercial space stations when we have them. Do you lose the sense of urgency? What do y'all think, Chad?
And it's
EJ,
also...
yeah?
Oh, well.
Either way, yeah, go, Alex. Whatever. Somebody just talk.
Yes is the answer. Alex, go.
Yeah, it's also the fact that, if we're going to replace everything with Starship, right? It's like, where's the space station based Starship or something like that? Like, where's that? Where's SpaceX building that? I don't see that Starbase. I don't see that. I know they're doing human rating for HLS. That's all really what we know, right? And you'd think that for something like this to be launched in a couple of years, they will already be doing, bending metal and welding stuff and whatever for this kind of thing. We have not seen any of this, unfortunately, and I don't know, like it's one of these things that make me a bit skeptical. I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. Period. Right. Like, I know it's going to happen. They have a drive to be able to accomplish this in the future. I just don't agree with the timelines, right? Because I've seen, like, let's be honest, we three have been around for a long time. You probably a bit more than me, but still, we've been, following space for a while. And we know SLS, we know Falcon Heavy, we know Starliner, we know Dragon, right?
Yeah.
They did not come at the times that they originally were
thought
expected.
they were going to come.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So,
I will address one more thing, and then we're going to go on to the next topic, right? There's money involved. So if you run it for another 3 years and your budget's $1 billion+ a year, and who's chipping into that? Let's not get off into the weeds there, right? But there's money, and is it $3 billion extra dollars or more that you spend on the ISS by keeping it up there for another couple years? Well, probably. Could you do it for cheaper? Well, maybe. I hope nobody goes into a government database and selects all star from things needed to run the space station and deletes them. But the flip side of that is that you have to spend the money, but there are people who the money gets spent on like, I don't know, mission control in Houston, Texas at Johnson, and there's this entire thing of budgets going to support mission control in Texas, and then there are Congress people who are in charge and people in the Senate who then have interests that are running the station, but then those people are going to need to confirm a new NASA administrator soon, right? So if I were to completely go off into the field, I'm not going to worry about Elon Musk needing $800 million sooner, so he says, give it to me now, don't give it to me later, right? They're already getting the contract. I wonder what happens if Isaacman walks into a hearing where he needs the support of a lot of senators in a lot of places, and a lot of, I guess, government people in a lot of places, and says, you know something, we're going to keep the ISS up there. And then all of a sudden, everybody backs him and he gets confirmed really quickly. Do y'all think that that is a made-up conspiracy theory? There are people right now in Texas who are concerned about losing 3 years of ISS budget.
Huh.
And if Isaacman came in there and saved that, chat?
I mean, I think that would be probably a net benefit, you know, if he did that. I mean, I don't like Das personally. I don't think all the divisiveness that we've seen in space is you know, a good thing to do. Extending some olive branches probably would be a better idea. Just saying it out there, like, it'd probably be a better idea.
Yeah.
You know, like, you get some of those people, you know, you know, extend a line of dialogue with some of these people, you get confirmed, and, you know, then you can play ball.
Yeah.
Because now you have the people that, like you said, sign your paycheck behind you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the whole system and checks and balances of NASA work. I think Rook would be crazy not to do something like that.
It seems like such the possibility of 4D chess. And of course, when we're looking at it from the outside, it's easy to see 4D chess moves, right? And maybe that's not what actually is going on. Really curious to see what Isaacman's response to that is and how that affects things. Chat, 55% of chat thinks that they should keep it going until 2030. Don't do it earlier. Of course, 20% say that they want it to go longer than 2030. 25% said end it earlier than planned. But chat pretty much in the center bucket there of keep it going to 2030, right? I guess we'll find out. There's like a lot of levers and pulleys, ropes pulling in various directions, right?
You know what the interesting thing is, and I'm sorry, I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into this conversation.
Oh, boy.
You know, the ISS was originally supposed to cease to exist in like 2020, right? Like that was the original plan. They're supposed to get rid of it. You know, commercial crew or Ares 1 was supposed to do its thing in the 20-teens, and then commercial crew through to 2020, and then maybe at 2024 at the latest.
Yeah.
We're already extending hardware was supposed to be gone. Like, it's past its shelf life by almost a decade at this point.
Yeah.
Well, not a decade, a half decade, but you get the idea. What year is it?
What year is it? I do think it's probably time for us to move on here. It's a big, complicated discussion. It's possible that Elon's statement was just driven out of frustration. I don't know that the money would end up going to Mars instead. Would SpaceX make their $800 million sooner if it needed to be deorbited by 2027? Is that even realistic? Could they do it? There's a lot of things pushing and pulling in different directions, including the confirmation of a new NASA administrator and getting everybody on board with that, right? I'm super curious to see if over the next year or two we get companies like Vast that start giving us more options, because I become a lot more open to gracefully deorbiting the International Space Station if I know that there are other companies that have put space stations up there and we can go there and do things, right? In any event, let me hit some support really quickly because we've been talking a lot here. I got Ash, who gifted some memberships, 5 Red Team memberships. That might have been the last one I ended on. Austin Skirvin, $5 tips to tips.nasaspaceflight.com. Get Das's cheesecake. Hype for Flight 8. We're getting to Flight 8. We know that they caught the booster, but can they keep to ship Flight 9? We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. Gamer.io cheesecake flashbacks. Nice. Devin upgraded to Red Team Jerwa. Whoa, what? Hang on a second. This turned red. It was 31 minutes ago. Jerwa at tips.nasaspaceflight.com with $123.45. 12345. We see
Oh.
Jerwa's name in chat all the time. Thank you for the $123.
That's amazing, Das. I got the same combination on my luggage.
Nice, EJ. I'm surprised yours isn't 154 or something, but you know.
No.
Oh, no, I just actually said his actual code. And then lastly, Bulletin here, advertising a film that they're working on. We do have an email address that you can email if you'd like us to advertise your film. Bulletin. Appreciate the support, though. Let's see here. What is next on the list? Oh, my gosh. Are we moving on to the asteroid chance?
Yeah.
Or are we moving on to the asteroid chance, or are we getting into whether or not astronauts who command the International Space Station might know a little bit about the operations of the International Space Station?
Which
one?
You know, Das, you weren't here, but we talked about the asteroid pretty substantially on last week's Flame Trench.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you want to give us the quick rundown on the asteroid, and then we'll get in? Okay.
Sure. So the gist of it is that the asteroid 2024 YR4, which had the highest 1 in 32 chance as of last week of hitting Earth, which is the highest of any asteroid that we've tracked, the chances of it hitting is now substantially lower. We started actually really observing it and figuring out I say we. Humans started, really observing its trajectory and figured that it's down below 1% now. So it's probably not going to get near us. But this, long story short, is this is probably a good wake up call because extinction events don't come just from the ground; they can absolutely come from space too.
Right.
So, I mean, essentially, what me, Jack, and Sawyer talked about last week was what is the best way to address this? Should we do asteroid redirect? Should we do this? Should we do that? I mean, I was coming down in favor of if we have more space infrastructure in space, so more, Jack's old moniker, more rockets, more better, we'll be better suited and have better dexterity in space. We'll be better suited to deal with this problem should it actually arise. And we have okay, and now it's 5%. Now we really got to worry, right? That's basically the gist of it. It's, just because 2024 YR4, we verbally dodged a bullet or an asteroid, doesn't mean that we should not take this seriously. Planetary defense is an office of NASA, and that is something that should not be ignored. I'm not necessarily sure if the best way is to have a dedicated mission for it, but more or less have it be, have it be like a fire station in space. It's a municipal service that we could do, right? Like Asteroid Defense, Command or something like that. That'd probably be better, and then use what we have, more rockets, more better. Use a rocket. I talked about if we had more SLSs, one of these comes wrong, just hit it with a core stage. That'll work.
Hit it with a core stage, really?
Hit it with a core stage. People are going to look at me like I'm crazy. Just do that. What we know that it'll perturb it from the DART mission. Core stage is big enough to cause enough of an impulse on that thing to move it.
Yeah.
It really depends on the size and mass of the asteroid and a couple of other factors. But, if we had more of them, maybe we could do that. And if we're going to expend an SLS, that's not a bad way to do it. That would be pretty cool. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, wait, EJ. Do you think we could actually hit the astronaut with a core stage?
I don't want to hit astronauts with core stages. I want to hit asteroids.
Did I say astronauts? Asteroids?
You were thinking about
astronauts. We could do that. I don't want to.
No, but realistically, could we actually maneuver a core stage such that it hit the asteroid? Right now?
Probably not. The core stage doesn't have RCS on it.
Yeah.
You'd need some fine-tuned thrusters. So, okay, let's say Centaur 5.
Okay.
Or an EUS. EUS would be able to do it.
So an upper stage that already has a long duration, power generation, mitigated boil off, something that could last that long and has the maneuverability, course corrections, relights, RCS thrusters, blah, 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 blah. All the things that you would have to put on your Kerbal rocket to hit an asteroid, right?
What is this Kerbal thing? You mentioned it and Alex mentioned it. I don't know what that is.
That's a good question.
Hey, it works in Kerbal, right? You can just light up one of the RS-25s and do 10% thrust or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
To fine tune the trajectory. It works.
Okay. So the latest information is that it's gone way down. I guess the follow-up question, and let's talk about this a little bit. We know this asteroid is coming towards Earth. Do we use this opportunity to see if we could have deflected it if it were hitting us? Even if it turns out that it's not going to hit us, do we use this opportunity as practice to shake it out to see if we can even come together and make it happen? Or would we rather just post mean things on social media at each other, right? Like, is it even a possibility? What do y'all think?
This is going to sound awful, but if I had the choice between throwing something at 2024 YR4 or posting mean things on the internet, I would post mean things on the internet. Now, hear me out. Hear me out. If that's the choice, So, NASA did the DART mission, the double asteroid redirect.
Uh-huh.
It was Didymos that was orbiting around another asteroid, Dimorphos. It was a binary asteroid system. Well, kind of an asteroid system, a two-body asteroid system. So one was orbiting around the other. The reason why NASA chose to hit that, right, is because if we did perturb the asteroid that was orbiting around the bigger asteroid, we wouldn't have to worry about its trajectory changing much. It's just its orbit around the asteroid changing.
Okay.
Dos, we don't have a space shuttle. We don't have Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck, and we can't send a space shuttle past low Earth orbit, right? We don't have a bunch of people that can drill on this thing. If we're going to move it, it's going to be smacking it with something, right?
Okay.
I personally don't think it's very smart to smack something that's heading anywhere near or like a medium or even high Earth orbit.
Okay.
Can you imagine the Kessler syndrome?
Well,
now
we're talking about redirecting it, right? We're not talking about blowing it into pieces. We're talking about redirecting it somehow.
Well,
right?
We don't have a way to redirect things, dude. That's what I'm saying. Our way of redirecting thing is to slap it with something.
If it was going to hit us, could we do it though?
But
I know we don't have one sitting in the barn right now ready to launch, but could we
should,
do it?
though.
may I suggest one thing, which is something that's been roaming around my brain ever since we brought up this thing, which is if it's gonna be coming through the Earth Moon system, like really, really close to it, you know what we can do? Radar observations. When we did DART, one of the big problems that happened is that it happened far away, and we needed to use things like the James Webb Space Telescope to even observe the aftermath of the whole thing. And one of the big important things that happens when you try to deflect one of these asteroids or any of these rocky bodies is that depending on what their composition is, you know, you may have heard that there's different types of asteroids, right? Mm-hmm. There are ones that sort of look more like a pile of rubble, right? Stick together by gravity. There are others that are more compact, that they are, you know, actual rocks that have a bit of few lumps and whatnot, but they are actual rocks. They are not piles of rubble. And then there are metallic asteroids that are even, you know, more tougher and whatnot.
Type you go in mine or whatever.
Exactly. Right? And so when it comes to deflecting an asteroid, the composition and the aftermath and how the ejecta works, it also takes part on how it deflects the asteroid. When we did this with Didymos in that double asteroid redirection test, DART, that one was a bit of a mix between a pile of rubble and also a compact body, right? It seemed like it was a bit of a mix of that. And the way that it happened is that since it was a mix, there was a huge plume of ejecta out of that acted not entirely, but a little bit. It gave it actually more of a push than we actually expected out of that. But what if instead it was the other types, right? Mm-hmm. This one, we think it's going to be one of those other types. What if we could take advantage of this close pass, throw a thing out to that asteroid in such a way that we think, you know, no matter how fast or how much of that transmission of energy goes, right? It's in a direction that we know it's going to push it out, actually, from Earth. And we have the amazing advantage of it being so close that we have lots of ground-based telescopes, like even, you know, small telescopes that will be able to observe that. Radar observations, which you can see lots of different, details of that and everything. And so this is one of the things that I'm really excited about. We're doing a similar thing, not with an impactor, but a series of missions flying by Apophis in
Right.
2029. It's also going to be, might remember Apophis from a from a decade ago or so, right? That
Stargate SG-1.
people- Yeah,
He was like the first bad guy.
not that,
Not
but,
really the first bad guy. That was Raw. But anyways, when the series started, it was Apophis.
But
Go ahead.
like, people were saying, "Oh, this is going to impact." It's not going to impact, but it's going to be coming close. And there are already agencies like China, ESA, and even NASA might be putting together something to fly by Apophis because it's a large asteroid and coming through the Earth-Moon system, very, very close to us. Why not just do that? Like, we're literally being handed out from nature this object passing by the Earth. Let's
So you
go.
wanna study
it's
it.
there.
It's like being delivered to our doorstep, and all we have to do is reach out and study it when it's here.
Exactly.
That's your
Let's do
position.
experiments with it. It's
All
a
right.
yeah. Let's do things to it. Let's try
No,
it
it was
out.
a-
Why not?
It was Anubis that put the Naquita asteroid up there. Thank you, flawed perspective. If we're doing Stargate
nerds.
SG-1 references to asteroid impacts, I think real quick in chat, could we put it in orbit and keep it? It's going to go past too fast. There's no way that we could capture it, right?
Yeah.
I've been reading chat while EJ and Alex were talking and sort of giving their opinions on it. I've been reading chat, and I see a bunch of people who are concerned that if we do try to put together a mission and we go and boop it, but we boop it wrong, even though it's not supposed to hit Earth, we could do it such that it hits Earth, right? Like we mess it
That's what I'm
up
saying.
and we knock it onto a trajectory where it hits Earth. I get it. Like I think that that's a pretty valid concern. So what I would want to do, assuming that there was some sort of funding, and we are saving so much money these days, I feel like we should put some money towards stuff like this. I feel like there should be some funding to create a probe on an existing rocket that would go out there and fake it. Right? Get so close to it that you're gonna go through all the motions, act like you're gonna do it. Just see if you can get it done. Can you even get a probe within striking distance of that
Yeah,
asteroid?
that is also-
right? Can you do it? But in the end, we don't actually do it once we're 100% sure it's not going to hit us. But why not see if we can do it? I would check the box on my taxes that said spend money on asteroid redirect just in case. There's so much other defense spending that's so important, right?
Yeah.
This is defense spending to me. It's
You-
just that
you
we're not
hit-
defending ourselves against other humans. We're defending ourselves from asteroids, which is honestly better.
You hit a really good topic though, because actually, defending the Earth from asteroids and other, space dangers, that's like high up there in sort of what the public thinks that should be, going the money for, right?
Yeah.
It's like, this is what we want to happen. And guess what? NASA is doing that. We've got today, like, breaking news. Hi. They just awarded the launch contract for the NEO Surveyor telescope. It's going to be, it's an amazing observer telescope, or observatory, whatever you want to call it, right? And it's going to be launching on a Falcon 9 rocket. They have already awarded that launch contract to SpaceX.
Yep.
And it's going to launch September 2027. We're going to have lots of many asteroids being discovered with this NEO Surveyor spacecraft.
I want more spending like that.
Yeah.
Like, something? We have aircraft carriers, and we have ballistic missiles, and we have F-35s, and we have all these different things, drone swarms, tactical lasers, blah, blah, blah. And none of them are going to save us from an asteroid. Maybe some of them might be sort of useful, but we have all these ways of killing other people, and we don't have a lot of great ways of actually protecting ourselves from external threats like that, right? So I would absolutely love to see some money spent on that. And I want to be careful. I don't want to knock it into a way that it's actually going to do more damage. I saw a comment in chat, oh, well, it's not going to hit the United States. Why should the United States spend money on it? This time, right? Like this time it's not going to, but it's still an opportunity for us to gain the ground truth, the experience to see if we even could save ourselves.
Just
because
wait
we
until
don't
the
know.
3-kilometer comet
Yeah.
impacting.
What if?
Anyways.
So what if this? Yeah, Alex, that's what I'm saying. So what if this thing hits in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? Then what? Then what?
Just
Is that not the U.S.'s problem?
It depends
just put it out
exactly how
there.
big it is. Blah blah blah. You know, it's like that sort of thing. It's such an opportunity for us to learn something, for us to advance. Like this sort of technology would be an advancement for us. So I think that we should. I would love if we could spend money on this sort of thing. We spend money on so
Just
many
say-
things, right?
Just boop it on the
Just
screen.
boop it really big, yeah.
Can you do that? Can you do that again?
Hey,
Can we do that?
what can we
just boop
can
it?
we just boop it? Adrian says there's a treaty prohibiting weapons in outer space. What is that? Is that a weapon? Is my Toyota Camry a weapon because I could get it going sort of fast and crash into stuff?
Maybe Tesla.
Maybe there's
Roadsters.
Yeah, right. I don't know that I'm not
Okay.
saying that the idea
All right.
should be to send a nuclear bomb after it or something, right? That's
Okay.
a very movie thing to do. I don't think we have to do something like that for funsies.
Das, I got an idea.
Go.
I got an idea. All right. So, you mentioned vehicles. Let's just make everybody happy.
Yep.
Take a Falcon Heavy. We put a Cybertruck on the front
Okay.
in the payload fairing.
Okay.
And we shoot that
Okay.
at an asteroid. I think everybody would be okay with this. Because people that like Cybertruck, like,
Would be
I
like,
think
oh,
it's a
it's
cool truck.
bulletproople. Yeah, it's a perfect asteroid defense, right?
Exactly.
And people
and then
who
people
don't
that don't
like it-
Cybertruck. Yeah. See where I'm going with this?
EJ's
Yeah,
playing
see?
4D chess over here. EJ's like 15 moves ahead. The Cybertruck is the perfect truck for this, right?
We can settle this logically, Captain.
Anyways, it feels like using that opportunity, like Alex said, to study it. Maybe we're not in immediate danger, but could we even do it? Do we have to be in actual mortal danger for us to get stuff done? That's kind of lame. I wish that we could actually heck, put up an X Prize, right? Like give 5 different companies, like the one who can actually go out there and get within this distance of the asteroid when it's this far away from Earth wins an X Prize. I don't know. Come up with some way to do it. But
Like the KSP contracts, you can carry some astronaut as well on a high G ride around the asteroid.
it's a high G ride, and you carry this engine to a certain altitude, and then you also
Exactly.
rendezvous. Like, oh, we can get so many contracts now. Anyways, folks,
Science
it is interesting to think about. As always, I always am hopeful that we can make progress and we can work together and we can do cool things. It doesn't always happen. I'm always hopeful that it does, right? Where are we at in the list? How much time do we have left in this show anyways? Kevin, how much longer are we doing the show for?
I don't see a timer.
Yeah, I don't see no
So-
timer.
I just need to make
We good.
sure.
Well,
We have, like,
technically I do see it, but it's 0-0. So
Plenty of time left in the show. I just want to make sure I'm not supposed to be rushing through a topic or anything like that, right? Have Mr. Beast do it.
You have
Dude, he
all
can do
the
it.
time.
Thank you.
All the time
Hey.
you want.
I got
still
100
preparing
YouTubers
twist.
and sent them to space to deflect an asteroid. Then we'll release it in series so it's more views on YouTube. Anyways, where are we at next? Did I miss any big support or anything like that? Telstar 86, 499 Curly L's NSF to buy the ISS fund.
we're gonna need a lot of those. To buy the
If
ISS.
that was realistic, it's like the ISS goes up on eBay and I wait till 30 seconds before it stops and then we're like, NSF bids $22.62 to buy the ISS. Thank you for the support there. That's we'll put that aside for the buying the ISS. Space Pope says they'll take the ISS. $20 super chat. I could use a replacement Fortress of Popitude. Thank you, Space Pope. Jeff Rowe, gifted 5 Red Team memberships, and 6-string Simpleton upgraded to Capcom. Appreciate you, 6-string Simpleton. What are we doing next here? Are we talking about Starship or are we talking about social media?
Is Kevin ready?
Let's see. I don't want to like. Oh, hey,
Okay.
there you go.
Starship,
Whatever
yeah.
Kevin shows on the screen, we talk about. Go, Alex.
Yeah, so we've got a date for Starship Flight 8, I guess. Right now, it's looking like the first available date, that primary date, is going to be February 26, with a roughly 1 hour window opening at 5:30 p.m. Central. So, and the advisory is longer than an hour, but based on previous windows and whatnot, it's looking like it's roughly an hour long for the actual window. It's just that the advisory usually goes a little bit longer than that. To there's a rocket that comes back, so there's that little bit at the end. And so yeah, right now it's looking like it's gonna be next Wednesday. So yeah, that's interesting. Now, as as whether there's been any information from SpaceX. Hang on, because I just got a notification just in case.
Wait, better refresh your email.
Yeah, right. Refresh emails and whatnot. But yeah,
I don't
right
have
now
anything.
SpaceX has not said any officially. But this is the whole deal, right? We even had a whole video about this a couple of years ago that where we said, look, even before SpaceX says we're launching this day, right? There's already, airspace closures, marine closures, hazard notices. There's even now a road closure for flight. Like it literally says spaceflight activities, right? So we have even road closures in place. Now, what about the vehicles? Because probably people are wondering, what about the vehicles? Well, Ship 34, here, this little fella right behind me, it completed static fire testing a couple of weeks ago, right? And it went to Mega Bay 2. We don't know what it's doing because unfortunately it's out of sight. We could see its brother or sister, I don't know how to refer to that, Ship 35, but not Ship 34 itself. As for Booster 15, the booster for this mission, we saw the hot staging ring going to the Mega Bay 1, and then it went out again. I don't know what's going on with that.
Is it in or out right now, though?
I think last time I saw it was out of the Mega Bay.
Okay.
But I don't know where it is or if
It's been kind of lousy weather.
Behind. Yeah, it also went out when there was like really bad weather. So I think the only footage that we have earlier today was like this, blurry kind of blob that you could see that it was the hot staging ring, but you're gonna have to have a little bit of imagination, I guess.
The weather's been lousy out there. But all right, we haven't heard from SpaceX yet. The documentation keeps lining up, right? There's more and more documentations that are pointing at an attempt, at least on the 26th, Wednesday in the afternoon, sort of late afternoon there. Where are you at with this actual happening? I mean, there's no full stack. Hot staging ring has been going in and out. No wet dress rehearsal. Like, do you think it's realistic for SpaceX to have a flight happening in how many days is it? Like 5 days? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Yeah. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, hang on. In 5 days, 2 minutes, and 13 seconds. Should we have a countdown to launch? I do have a countdown to that launch. But yeah, right now, we have things are falling in place, right? What we don't know is what's going on with... I think right now the biggest question mark is the vehicles, right? Because they are still hiding in the Mega Bays. Booster, Mega Bay 1, Ship, Mega Bay 2. So we don't know the status of those. But also at the same time, the launch sites. We are 5 days away from the launch, and it's awfully very active with construction everywhere, right? For Flight 7, they cleared a lot of these things really early on.
And lousy weather, too.
And it's also been lousy weather as well, yeah. This is one of the things that we should see in the next few days as well, where, they pack things up and they clear things out and everything and try to make everything, not be in the way when you have the world's most powerful rocket launching next door.
Right. Well, I guess we will find out.
Forgot.
And landing. Well, that's the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
They are going for a booster catch on this one, right?
Yeah. And we have other news as well, not for Flight 8, but for the following flight, for Flight 9. Just earlier today, we've got one of these communications permit, right? They have antennas on the vehicles, and so they need to be allowed to transmit at certain frequencies and distances and orbital regimes and whatnot. And so for that, they have already applied for a communications permit for Flight 9. And within it, they talk about the possibility of the second stage, aka the ship, also coming back for a landing at the launch site. So That's interesting because that's the first time that we see some kind of wording officially that, hey, we may try a ship catch. It also says that it could be a water landing, of course, because they have the option of, changing their minds at the last minute and saying, you know what, let's not do that. But it can also cover for on board to a water landing and whatnot. But yeah, that's the whole deal with that. That at least it does include the other option, the more exciting option of we're catching a ship. So yeah.
Well, I think it'll be interesting. SpaceX has done crazier things, right? Of course, if it happens on Wednesday, we'll be there sharing it with you. But we are watching very closely. I've got a really busy schedule next week, and I have to figure out if I'm going down there. Usually, we wait until we get an official communication from SpaceX on it. Sometimes that comes in late in the day on like a Friday or whatever. We're already at 6:30 Eastern. Starbase maybe happening on Central Standard Time. It's 5:30 Eastern, or sorry, 5:30 Central right now. What, the last time, didn't we get an email or something like that came out, or an official announcement on the website that was like 7 or 8 o'clock at night, if I recall correctly? It was later than I thought.
That's why I was like, ooh, I got a notification. Maybe it's the SpaceX. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe Dan is already, typing it up.
We need to ask Dan if we're supposed to be traveling or not. But anyways, that is a whole thing. We will certainly be sharing it with you. I saw some people asking about the patch. We have a very cool patch design that we've been cooking up. We always reveal the patch when it's a full stack for flight, right? So if you're interested in what's going to be going on with the patches, be on the lookout for a booster and a ship to make their way out to the launch pad. And of course, we almost always try to do a live stream, like a commentary live stream for the full stack, right? And when we do, that's when you'll see the patch. Of course, SpaceX is going so fast these days, our patches are all pre-orders. So if you see the patch, we release it, it will be on a pre-order basis because we've just ordered them, or we're just about to order them, I think. And SpaceX just moves faster than, checks notes, a patch embroidery factory does. Not really. I wish you could buy them way earlier in advance, but that's how fast SpaceX is going. So anyways, why no patch for Blue Origin Flight 1? It wasn't something we thought of. Like, Starship patches and NSF patches are sort of our thing, right? And we may do things like first operational flights for other things or something like that. Maybe that's a good idea. Y'all like some patches, right?
We did have, though, merch dedicated for New Glenn, because we had the New Glenn version of the launch, entry, and landing design for that merch. I see Kevin is preparing for that, so I'm gonna leave him.
Yeah,
I'm gonna stall a little bit, but yeah, we have a version for Falcon 9, if you have seen that on our shop, and so we just did the New Glenn version because fortunately enough, it also does an entry burn, so it kind of fits very nicely. When Starship version, right? Adrian.
Hey, we're working on it. We always have so many different ideas. Like I said before, we've got some new folks that are working on merch for us, coming up with new ideas and stuff. But I mean, I just like little cool designs, Show off your space nerdery by heading over. Hey, here's a question. How many people watching the show signed up for the new newsletter thing that we're doing? I'm on the mailing list. Did anybody else get their 10% discount in the shop? That's a thing. Right? Anybody in chat? We started a new mailing list. Apparently, a lot of people are getting a little overwhelmed by the amount of information that's out there. And so we did a little asking around, and folks said, yeah, I'd like to get an email newsletter. And my reaction was like, email newsletter? 1998 called. Like, what? Email newsletter? But apparently this is something that people want. And so there's a command. There you go. Nightbot's got it there. You can actually sign up to get a weekly newsletter from us. And we put all sorts of different stuff in it. There'll be some late news, like the news recap of this week in spaceflight. You'll see maybe a behind the scene. There's always like a little behind the scene, what the team is up to sort of section, upcoming launches that are happening. And we did a thing where if you sign up, you can get a 10% discount code. Look at that. It's the newsletter sign up, where you get a 10% discount code for your next order in the shop. A lot of people gaming the system there and ordering L2 with it, which we're perfectly fine with. I mean, hey, that's what we said, 10% discount, right? But anyways, that is a whole thing that we have been working. We have a new team of folks that are sort of working along. Anyways, I miss 1998. I was graduating high school in 1998. So anyways, you don't have to do it. I was just surprised that some people thought that that was a useful thing. So we've put that out there so folks can start doing it. Me too. Kevin says me too. Yes. So
I was not graduating in 1998. I think I may have been graduating elementary school.
some of us are a little bit longer in the tooth than others, EJ. It's all good.
Hey, Alex, when were you born?
I was born in 1996.
All right.
Wow.
Okay. I'm the middle. That's fine.
All right. Okay. Well, folks, it is the flame trench, right? We've talked about a lot of different things in the flame trench, but there's one big thing we haven't talked about yet, and this one's going to be a little tough, right? I've seen it mentioned over and over again. I've alluded to it myself about social media posts and saying mean things on the internet and that sort of stuff. I don't want y'all to think that we're scared to cover that sort of thing, right? Because it's out there. And even though we primarily cover spaceflight and what's happening at Starbase and what's happening with rocket launches and that sort of stuff, this is so adjacent to spaceflight. It's something that we needed to talk through, right? It's not our core thing that we focus on. We're not a political commentary place or anything like that. But everybody probably knows what I'm talking about. The big is brouhaha, a way to put it, where there are posts from Elon and let's say lots of other people on the internet that really got spicy and not in a fun way, right? Some insults being thrown back and forth, some very unkind words being thrown back and forth about some very difficult topics. And that's where we get into, do we need to destroy the International Space Station? And, you know, how skilled are astronauts and what do they know about scheduling and all this sort of stuff, right? Dust up. Dust up is probably a good way to say it. But here's kerfluffle, right? But, you know, honestly, even terms like that minimize it. And it's not something that should be minimized. I've been frustrated before. And I'm often in positions of leadership or authority or where people are asking for me to do things or decide things, and I don't always get it right? And I snap at people sometimes. Like if there are folks around NSF, they could tell you that sometimes I get a little frustrated. I'm like, go fracking smacking backstabbing sort of deal, like Yosemite Sam with things like shoots of steam coming out my ears, right?
Nice. Good reference.
You like that?
Yeah.
And sometimes I get frustrated and I say things and 10 minutes later I'm in Kevin's inbox and I'm like, hey, Kevin, wow, you know something? That was really passionate and I'm sorry I said that, right? Like I didn't mean it to come out that way. I was just, you know, really tired, really frustrated, whatever, right? It is tough when you see people say stuff because passion will happen and statements will happen. And instead of coming back and being like, wow, okay, that was actually pretty rough, they double down on it, right? It is tough to see people who have strapped themselves into rockets not treated with respect. I think a lot of people would agree with that. It takes a certain amount of gumption to decide that you are going to put your life in somebody else's hands, another engineer's hands, and you're going to strap yourself into their rocket and go to space. And because of that, astronauts get a little bit of just out of the gate default respect because they are astronauts and they have put themselves in that position willingly, right? So it's tough to see astronauts not being given respect, right? On the flip side, I do understand there's a lot of frustration about things holding back progress and things that are slowing me down and that sort of stuff. So it's a little bit difficult to really engage with the space audience when this is the news of the day. Does that make sense to y'all? Like I was reading through that and I was like, man, I want to be excited about the Starship flight. And I want to be excited about space stations going to space. And I love the International Space Station. And this is really tough for me to read. I mean, you make light of it by saying, oh, you hate it when mom and dad fight, right? Well, in the real world, real people do hate it when mom and dad fight, right? So it's not to make light of it. But anyways, there's a lot of information that we just don't have all the facts on, right? And so as somebody, I hope that you come to us and you understand that we try to get facts for you, right? I don't want to just say what I think about government agency X. I'm going to try to get some information and then present you with information. And so much of this stuff that was going on with, could astronauts been brought back from the ISS sooner or not? Was there an offer for that? Was there not? We just don't have all the information on it. And it's tough to do any real commentary on it. We know this entire time, SpaceX has been charged with bringing back the astronauts from the International Space Station. And we've sort of looked at the graph of how crew rotations work on the International Space Station, right? And we sort of hear these explanations of, well, here's why they were doing it. It was just the least minimum impact to the International Space Station, even though Starliner honestly screwed up and couldn't get the astronauts back down again, right? But I do hope that we can make progress and we can work through things and we don't just devolve into slap fights on the internet, because that's a really tough place to be, right? Beyond that, I mean, EJ, Alex, we've known that the astronauts were coming down on a SpaceX Dragon for the longest time. That decision was made long ago, right? There's not anything new there for us, is there? Alex actually wrote the article that goes into this, or that wrote this Spaceflight. So Alex, there's no new information there, is there?
It's the hardest part, right, of all of this, that I really wish we knew more, right? I feel like when someone makes a claim that, ooh, you don't know what you're talking about, it's like, maybe then we should be informed, right? I do agree that we don't know the full facts, and as long as that keeps being the reality, then we will not be able to make informed opinions out of this whole kerfuffle, as you called it, right?
Yeah.
But my other thoughts on this is, it comes back to the whole thing that we explained like long time ago when this happened at the beginning of June, essentially, of calling it a rescue. I still am on the side of it's not a rescue, and it is, you can choose maybe the expression of I'm gonna die on this hill, right? On I'm firm on this opinion that it is not a rescue, and therefore there's not a rush, right?
Yeah.
And
like the ISS is not actively on fire right now.
Yeah.
Like you have these heroic say, oh, we're going to go rescue them, and all this language that you use. And it's like, if the ISS was on fire, or the life support had failed, or there was a leak and there was only 2 days left of oxygen or something, well, you wouldn't even need to go rescue them, because the ISS keeps crew vehicles there so that they can come down. And that's been the plan this entire time, right? So it's a little bit of a reach to try and gain points by saying that they need to be rescued, right?
Yeah, and this is one of the, because back at the time we also mocked mainstream media, because that was the run on the mainstream media. The headlines were stranded astronauts and whatnot, and we actually were like, what are they talking about?
How are they stranded? The word stranded is
stranded.
clicks. It makes emotion. Go, Alex. Sorry.
And one of the it's okay. I want to bring one specific point that was made, in favor of the word stranded, about how if you have a flight, for example, on a plane, and your airline says, oh, it's canceled, you're stranded on the airport, right? And you could argue about that. But you don't call the next flight that you are assigned to your rescue flight.
Your rescue flight.
Right? Like, people will tell you that you're going nuts, essentially, right? It's like, what are you talking about? This is not your rescue flight. They have just rescheduled your travel to the next available slot. That's what they did with the two astronauts, right? Like, their spacecraft, where they went up, they were not trusting it for them to come back, right?
Right.
And so what do you do in the situation of, oh, I'm stranded on the airport? What does an airline usually do? Either it pays you for, the expenses and whatnot,
Yep.
or it tells you, hey, we're gonna have you. I actually had a recent similar story here where it was rescheduled 2 days later for another flight that was going to the very similar destination, and you just get booked on the next available flight, right?
Well, sometimes you feel like you've been rescued because it can be a very it can be a
Exactly.
very frustrating emotional thing
Yeah.
to be stuck in an airport without a flight. But I'm not a professional astronaut, right? I haven't trained for this. Nobody strapped me into a centrifuge and spun me around until I threw up before I could get on the plane. Right? That would actually be pretty hilarious if you had to do that before you could take commercial flights. But I digress. I think, like, as wanting to be serious about it, I've always had trouble with using the term stranded. I never felt like it was emotional, or I never felt like it was correct. And knowing that they're astronauts and they're professionals, yada, 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 I don't like seeing language like that because it feels like people trying to score brownie points for their side, right? And it walks you into this conflicting situation. There's this whole thing about, was there an earlier offer made to bring them back? I wasn't sitting in the room. I don't have any official information from one side. I know that Elon did post up that, I made an offer, but it's the first we've heard that, right? It's just now that has come out, and I feel like there were other opportune times where that would have really come to light. If it would have made sense for that to come to light, but it didn't, right? So I just don't know. I know that some people all the time get credit for being contentious or stirring the pot or posting whatever they want, right? All of these different things. How does that not fall into this bucket here? I just don't see how that didn't come out earlier. But then again, I can't tell you it didn't. I wasn't sitting there the entire time. And who knows? Maybe it was a side comment that never made it up to a NASA press conference, or maybe there was an email that was sent. Maybe there's some proof that somebody could come forward with receipts to prove that this actually did happen. And I think that would clear a lot of it up, right? If an offer was actually made, show the receipts. And people are much more likely to believe your receipts if you bring them in a level-head manner and you're not calling names or using language or something. I get that sometimes people feel like they need to strike out. I feel really bad when I do that, right? And there's certain things that I won't do and I won't go to. And if I do, I really do feel like I've messed up. Anyways, EJ, you've been very quiet through all this. Do you think they're getting rescued immediately? I mean, it's a tough topic, dude.
Das, the one thing that I keep going back to, guys, is, look, obviously they were never stranded. You're 100% right on that. And let me just get this right out of the way. Like, look, you go back 10 years ago. Elon comes out of nowhere with Tesla and SpaceX and does all this awesome stuff, right? He's a hell of a role model. Excuse my language. Just the guy's a role model, and you don't. There's people that vehemently defend what he does, and that's fair. That's fine. Totally cool. Like, I totally get it, because if he was at a point at one, like, one like he was like the golden boy, right? I'm not saying that he isn't anymore, right? But you don't get to stay a role model to people by calling people mentally deficient, more or less an astronaut. That's, dude.
That's tough.
I don't. That's I love the guy, but nah. You shouldn't do that. Like, I mean, once again, maybe see, like, the flip side of this, right? The flip side is this: we don't know what he knows. We don't know what he knows. Maybe he got burned, and maybe he's pissed about it. It's possible, but we don't. Like that's really where this conversation ends. We don't have all the facts. We don't know. He might not be talking out of his tailpipe here. I don't really agree with the whole stranded thing, right? But we don't know what went down behind closed doors. We probably never will. So, like, I mean, I it's good to address this, dude. Like, I don't think the astronauts were ever stranded, anything like that.
I don't think they were ever stranded. In danger, right?
Yeah.
Immediate danger for their lives, right?
It's like, we don't know that, dude. We don't even know that. Like, dude, there's been problems with the ISS that we didn't hear about for until some time later, right? Like it happens, you know. Like it's not like there's cameras on the astronauts for public consumption.
Yeah.
Like on the ISS, like 24/7. It would turn into Squid Game up there, right? Like that's not a thing.
Turn into
right?
Squid Game. That's not a thing.
Like
yeah.
Right? Can you imagine how crazy that would be? It'd be like terrible reality TV, right? Like you know, we don't know. Like we don't know what we don't know, and I think that, you know, we can only deal with what we know. Like on one hand, I don't think they were ever stranded. I don't think it's good to call astronauts to disrespect astronauts like that. I don't think that's a wise move.
I mean, like think how we normally look, right? Like I'm looking at a camera on Starbase, and I can tell you if there's a full stack on the pad right now. Right, independent verification. Put the camera there myself. I can tell you. I'm looking and I can see that a beam was lifted. I can see that something rolled out. I know that a test happened over here. We saw a launch happen from the Cape. We know that a rocket is coming into the port of LA. Whatever, right? All these different things that we focus on, that NSF focus. Hey, look, we actually put it on the screen. That's what we focus on. Notices have come out, and we're going to share that notice with you. The hot staging ring has rolled in, and that's a good sign that they're preparing for this next flight, and we're going to share that with you. All of the things that we sort of focus and rely on, and so it's tough for us to see so many people so into this topic, and we don't have a camera that can solve this for you, and we don't have a document that's been posted that has the 100% truth in it. It really is a tough situation because we want to be able to back up what we say with facts. So anyways, I did not want people to think that we weren't going to talk through that. It is definitely a tough situation. Personally, I would feel bad if I sort of talked to that way to Kevin or to EJ or to Sawyer or something like that, right? I would feel bad if I did that, and I would be on the DMs with Kevin being like, hey, dude, last night was tough. Like, hey, we got it worked out, but I didn't mean it that way, right? It is tough not to double down there, and it's good that you don't. So anyways, let's see here. What else do we have going on with this?
See, just real quick, can I chime in?
Yeah,
people in chat are saying we're excusing that behavior. We're not excusing that behavior, guys. Is this what you want to hear? It's not okay. You don't call somebody, you don't disrespect astronauts like that. All right? What we're trying to do is look at it objectively. We just explained that point first and foremost because that's what you wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And then when we tried to look at another point of view, everybody's like, oh, no, it's unexcused. You don't do that. Elon got to be in the position that he's in because he acted like a role model, because he carried himself with class.
People
like, I don't know
followed
what
him.
the heck this is, right?
People followed him. People believed in him, and they built electric vehicles, and they built rockets, and all these things, right?
You know, like for the people that were trying to insinuate somehow that I'm excusing that behavior, that's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Listen to yourself. That's crazy. Yeah. Absolutely not. You don't stay a role model like that by doing stuff like that.
Like, okay? I say, that's not something I would do. That's not okay for me personally, right? I don't control other people's behaviors, but I'm telling you what I think, the bar I hold myself to, right? I don't understand how, in any event, EJ, you good with that? Alex, you good with that?
Yeah, sure.
It puts us in a tough spot, dude. Like, what do we say? Like, oh, Elon's right, or do we say, oh, he's not right, or he's not right? Like, either way, we're screwed. Like, that's the reality of the situation. Alex, what do you think? Like, there's no good way to address this except to address it straightforward and then be done with it.
I do not agree with insulting people when you're trying to make a point. That's for sure. You lose the argument when you do that.
Yeah.
And one thing that I will say, though, and I'll repeat this, I will like to know things, right? Like, that's also one of my points earlier when I talked about this at the beginning.
You do. You're an info guy.
Yeah, right? Like, I like knowing these things. Like, Elon says there was this plan. I would like to hear more about this, right? Like, what was being proposed, or what were the intricacies of it? Like, what will have entail that? It just doesn't matter. Like, if you just say, oh, we could have brought them back earlier, how do you do that? There's a lot of ramifications out of that, and and that argument is lost when you insult another person, and it's like that.
Yeah. Let's see here. How are we doing? By the way, we have a little bit more analysis on this with some of the facts on dates and stuff like that coming up in This Week in Spaceflight. We actually explore a little bit of the rotations, the normal crew schedules on the ISS, how Starliner sort of threw a wrench in those plans, and how the dates sort of shook out, and why some of the decisions that may have been made for reasons that make perfect sense. And don't really need to make it more complicated than it is, but we are covering that on This Week in Spaceflight, which is coming right up. So in any event, let's see what else we have. Did I get any more super chat support coming through here? Gamer.io says Mr. Beast buy the space station to make videos. Would you allow it? Like, would that be okay? If Mr. Beast raised $100 million to buy the International Space Station and wanted to make YouTube videos on it, and the U.S. said, cool, we don't have to have $1 billion a year to do this anymore, and the other countries, like, would y'all be okay with that, chat? I'm curious. Appreciate the support either way, gamer. And Ethereal Swordsman with $15 tip saying, so, small donation for now, but NSF CubeSat Fund. I would love to put a CubeSat in space. It's... we just have so much opportunity, so many different things we work on. The amount of dedicated focus it would take to do something like that is not outside the realm of possibility. But I would love to be able to do that, especially with all the transporter ride shares. Like, space is becoming more and more accessible these days, right? So do appreciate the $15 tip there. I'm not sure it would be powered by Steam, though. Oh, let me scroll through some more chat here and see what other people say. If we've got some questions. There is a lot of questions, a lot of folks commenting on the whole discussion on Twitter. Did y'all notice we're not even going to show the tweets, right? Don't agree with some of the language in there, regardless of the exact backstory. We decided we weren't even going to show the tweets on here. Some stuff about the ISS or other rocket parts crashing into populated areas. Yeah. That was a thing that happened. Anybody got a spare COPV sitting around?
Yeah, maybe we'll go to Poland. We'll find out.
Did one hit a street light or something? I thought I saw a picture of like a street light looking thing that got dented by a COPV falling down from orbit.
Now I have to look that up. I did not see that. I saw a couple of other pictures showing like COPVs of different sizes. There's like a thinner one. It's for different kinds of gases on the Falcon 9 second stage. But yeah, there was a Falcon 9 second stage that got stuck in orbit about 3 weeks ago. And so because it got stuck, it eventually re-entered randomly between 53 degrees north and 53 degrees south. Turns out it went very near to 53 degrees north, actually, and it re-entered over Northern Europe, and some parts of it were found in Poland. But a lot of people, it was like at 4:45 a.m. Central European time, and still people were able to see that re-entry, which is quite interesting. Lots of early birds, I guess.
Was a failed deorbit burn, or they lost control of the stage, or is there more information on exactly why that deorbited in an uncontrolled manner?
We don't know the exact cause, but it was supposed to deorbit. What we know is that it was supposed to deorbit because there were hazard notices for that deorbit, right?
Right.
So it was planned, but it didn't happen. Like, it was tracked in orbit after the mission, which is not often the case because it re-enters, of course, and so it's no longer in orbit. And so, yeah, it just took about 3 weeks or so. You know, it would be amazing if somebody were to make a video about where do second stages go after they've done their mission, right?
I think somebody just needs to record a video about where the second stages go when they're done.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. But without any specific information on why it didn't deorbit. I think we did reach out. Is that the one we reached out to the FAA on and asked if that was within the scope? And they were like, yeah, that doesn't trigger an investigation.
Somehow
that was not.
Yeah.
It
go
doesn't.
Ahead. But it's also not the first time this happened, right? They had a similar event in 2021. Debris also reached the ground because it re-entered over like the Pacific Northwest of the U.S. over Washington, Oregon, and everything.
We've seen some Dragon trunks in farmer fields, right?
Yeah, that too. Trunks from Dragon spacecraft and everything. So, yeah, we'll probably have to talk about that on a dedicated video. I'm assuming
where second stages go to. A lot
I
less.
renamed it. Actually,
You did?
it's more like, is there an afterlife for space hardware? There's more than just upper stages. It's
Oh,
very tricky.
jeez. All right. Well, folks, that is going to bring us just about to the end of this week's Flame Trench. Talked about a bunch of different stuff. Hope y'all listened a little bit. Hope you got some more news. You know how it is. What we do on these Friday shows is we just try to talk through some of the news, and it's a little bit more rambly, a little bit less cut and dry. Here are the facts. So that's what we are here in the Flame Trench. On the show today, we had Mr. EJ, our buddy from over on Twitch. EJ, thank you so much, dude.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I know it's a privilege coming on here, and it's a privilege to be here and to entertain you every week. So thank you. I do appreciate it.
Always appreciate you, EJ. Thank you so much. You can find EJ over on Twitch. Y'all, his URL was there on the screen. And Alex as well. Thank you so much for being on the Flame Trench.
From actually the Flame Trench, there's a
From
flame
the
trench
actual Flame
here.
Trench, yeah.
Yeah. It's always a pleasure, and let's see what happens in the next week or so with Starship. It's surely going to be exciting.
Hey, we'll be there covering it, sharing the facts as to whether or not there's a full stack on the pad or not, the documents that come out, and all of the different things you need to know. Folks, my name is Das. If you see me in chat, I'm probably going by Das. My actual name is John Galloway for NSF. Thank you so much for joining us, not just when it's easy, but also when it's hard. And we will see you nerds later.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Echo down to nominal.
Fighting downside ST off. Bring in ST off. Off. It's orange!
Orange 25. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Décollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You read? Sure. We don't need any more of these.